It's been 6 months since I have been on a sabbatical. Let me tell y'all what happened because it didn't go how I expected at all. So let's get into it. The way the sabbatical started out for me was for months since 2023, I had been hearing very loudly from God that I needed to stop and do nothing. If you watch my last video, I talk about hearing very loudly, do nothing. And I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what that meant for me. You know, being Jamaican, growing up in a Caribbean household, you always hear like, idle mind is the devil playground and you can't be lazy, etc., etc. It wasn't until I ended up in a hospital and got admitted unexpectedly for 6 days that I realized my body was yelling at me. It was telling me, girl, it's time to sit your ass down. Like, you cannot keep going the way you're going. Even if you think you're resting, you're not resting enough. And so my sabbatical started in April of this year, 2024. And I didn't start working or start taking a break for real until May. I still had so much fear. I had a lot of money trauma come up. I had fear that I would be forgotten, that I wouldn't be able to restart my consulting business once I was ready, once I've rested. And because of that scarcity mindset, I was trying to set things up before I completely rested. I was doing everything that I could to stack money or set things up so that I wouldn't be without and I could pay my bills. So I even started working with LinkedIn to do these courses and so I could earn some residual income. And I started writing my book that I mentioned, and I actually wrote it in a month and a half. I wrote the whole book. It just needs to be edited. I actually didn't move forward with LinkedIn, and I had to turn down a lot of paid opportunities. And doing so, even though it was very hard, helped me to reframe my way of thinking around prioritizing rest. And it made me get more comfortable with centering my needs and my need for rest. And I was like, girl, I didn't need to do that, because I prepared myself for this moment. I had minimal spending, I had very good savings, and my operations for my company was very lean. So I didn't have to do all of that stuff, but I was so scared. Fear had me in such a stronghold. It made me push myself to my limits, beyond my limits. My hair was falling out, my skin was breaking out, I was getting pains, mysterious pains all over my body. I wasn't sleeping well, I wasn't eating consistently. And even though I was working out consistently, the stress of lifting weights and stuff was putting so much stress on my body. It was sending my body into overdrive. And this one weekend, my car got hit for the 3rd time. I want to get into all the stuff that had been happening, but I won't, to keep this video short. But the 3rd time, my car got hit for the 3rd time. I wasn't driving it, it was just parked. And I was like, somebody done put something's going on. But I just ignored it. I was like, you know what, it's okay. Then shortly after that, mentally, my mind, I had so many negative thoughts. I was caught in a negative self-talk rumination, like a loop of just bad thoughts, like I didn't want to be here anymore, no one cares about me, I felt so lonely, I was really down. And God just said to me, you really need to stop and do nothing. Listen, I said that you will always be provided for and protected. I got you. You've done the hard work. Enjoy the fruits of your labor and rest. You don't have to keep working. Overworking is not your birthright. And so I decided to go on a fast, and I didn't know what the fast would look like. I didn't know how long. I just knew I needed to lock myself away. I didn't go out. I didn't talk to anybody on the phone. I didn't go on social media at all. I didn't even go to the gym. I woke up, I prayed, I meditated, and I stretched to stay fit, to stay active. And I started reading this book. It's called The Value in the Valley by Iyanla Vanzant. And that book, oh my gosh, it transformed the way I thought about everything. The way I thought about all of my relationships, my interactions with people, and my childhood trauma. And it was reading that book that allowed me to start processing childhood trauma and inner child stuff. And I started reparenting myself. And I started pouring into myself in the ways that I thought I needed from my community and my family, which I still do need those things, but it started with me first. And in that time, I was watching the show Suits, and it was an episode where Samantha was looking for her birth parents. And the funny thing is that her name was Samantha, and I was just like, a lot of her characteristic and her traits and how she felt was very similar to how I felt growing up, and even up to a couple years ago. And so when she went to go look for her birth parents, Harvey said,
"She passed away when I was 2. That was the last he heard of her. They must have taken me when she died."
Which means nobody gave you up at all.
No, they didn't. But I still have all of this anger inside of me and nowhere to put it.
Maybe you don't have to put it anywhere. Maybe you can just let it go.
Would you have been able to do that?
I don't know. In my situation, I didn't think I could until I did.
In that moment, a light bulb went off, and it was like God was asking me that question. And I was like, you know what, you're right. Like, I made it through. I'm on the other side. I don't have to live in survival mode anymore. And I don't have to hold on to the things and the ways I was wrong and all the trauma. And so I decided to let it go. And the book, The Value in the Valley, helped me to do that. And prayer helped me to do that. Meditation helped me to do that. And getting close to God and my ancestors allowed me to do that. And I know the ancestor mention is a little controversial, but I feel like the people in my bloodline are protecting me, watching over me, petitioning on my behalf in partnership with God to order my steps and keep me aligned to my highest good. I truly believe that. And in speaking to them and honoring them and pouring into them, I am also healing my bloodline, not just me, but my bloodline. And this started to become evident because my relationships with my mom and my grandmother started to change. My mom, in me showing up as myself and wanting to set boundaries and communicate my needs, it helped to show my mom a different way of being as well. And it helped her to think about her own relationships. And so she started to show up differently, and she started doing her own work. And that allowed our relationship to heal. So much growth happened between us. And in the midst of that, I also healed the relationship I had with my grandmother. In me spending time with my grandmother and hearing her story and understanding her as a person outside of her role as my grandmother. Same thing with my mom. I had to view the people in my family as people and not just their roles in relationship to me. She's learning and growing and having to reparent her own self. And so understanding that allowed me to forgive, to let go, extend grace. The amount of healing that did to my inner child, I would not have been able to get that if I stayed in Maryland, if I was working all the time. Because had I been working all the time, I wouldn't have been able to go spend some time with her for her birthday. I wouldn't be able to just sit and spend 6 hours at a time with her. I wouldn't have the time to do self-reflection and inner healing and read that book. It's a big book too. Read all the chapters in that book and like reflect on how it applies to my life. I wouldn't have been able to do all of that. So that's one thing that came from the sabbatical that I was not expecting. What I was expecting was just to sleep and eat good and just relax. But I got so much more out of it. And I want to say I did also sleep and eat and just relax. Like I said, I was inside. I didn't do anything. And some of my friends even was saying like, what are you, like, you're just at home not doing nothing? Like, what are you doing? And in that period of me fasting and being inside and not doing anything, I came up with my own framework for burnout, autistic burnout recovery. And trying to heal my own burnout, I started using a symptom tracker to track my symptoms to identify any patterns. And that's when the idea came to me for this framework. And I identified these 5 phases that consist of the whole entire cycle and their different symptoms and coping mechanisms. To build out that framework, I locked in starting August 19, and I built it all out, and it just poured out of me. It took me 3 weeks, 120 hours. And after resting enough, I had the energy to do that. It allowed me to tap into my creativity to create effortlessly, and it just flowed out of me. It also helped me to redefine how I think about work. Work now is defined as my creative expression with the world and me sharing what it is I'm passionate about, what I like to do, and hoping that it helps whoever it's supposed to help. That's how I'm approaching the stuff that I do now. I would love to invite everyone to be on this journey with me, to help others figure out their creative expressions, to help people get out of burnout. If you like everything that I'm talking about, go ahead and hit the subscribe and follow. Is there a follow? Hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications so that when I post, you know. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you soon.